Hello and welcome from the
80.
It's great to be back. We're going to do a spring special, which we hope to repeat on each cardinal quadrant throughout the rest of the year. So the next one will be with the summer solstice. The significance of the spring equinox or vernal equinox is huge in Western tropical astrology. This is the start of the new year, and it begins early in the morning based on universal on the 20th of March. So this ushers in a 13-week period of activity. But if we look back to what happened with the winter solstice, there was some really challenging energy in that event chart, which has been playing out since then. So that's the astrological context. How are you doing? It's great to be back with you.
Thank you for having me back.
Thank you for having me back.
And it's lovely to connect with you all again for this equinox special. I'm really excited to get into the spiritual aspects of this equinox, particularly with the tarot, and we're bringing back the Hermetic wheel, which I know a lot of you did enjoy and found interesting, so I can't wait to talk to you about that.
And what else are you going to share today? Because you're going to look at the whole issue of polarities.
Polarities is something that I find fascinating. It goes along with the Hermetic wheel. And there are 7 main Hermetic principles in life. One of them you may have heard of, the law of attraction. That's probably the most well-known one. But the most important law for me personally, I feel, is the law of polarity. It's the first law that we come across. And so much of our existence is poles. We have up, down, on, off, left, right. So it's threaded into our very existence, but how we deal with that polarity on a day-to-day basis is really important.
And I think that's really topical, Elisa. Thank you so much, because people seem to have such polarized opinions at the present time in the world, very trenchant opinions. And of course, the internet allows people to express an opinion unedited very often, and perhaps also in a very passionate way, and that seems to be a big theme that's going on at the moment. And one of the things that seems to be developing is a more masculine posture, a kind of pushback against the sensitivity of the Piscean energies that have been so paramount, not least, of course, because Neptune, the modern ruler of that sign, has been in Pisces since 2012, and as we're recording it, it's come into the final conjunction with the Sun, a cazimi that's going to occur in the sign of Pisces for 150 years. But of course, the other ruler of the sign of Pisces, the traditional ruler, is Jupiter, which is very much about faith. But the spiritual dimension of this sign has perhaps been so powerful in recent years. We've had a lot more discussion, for example, about mental health. People in the public eye sharing their stories and their histories. And that's a very positive thing. But there does seem to be a pushback, perhaps from the last lunar eclipse, which was in the practical sign of Virgo, but in an opposition with the cold energies of Saturn in Pisces, a push towards some kind of regulation, or a sense that perhaps have things become too far entrenched in compassion. And that coincides with Neptune moving on the 30th into the sign of Aries, which of course is a fire sign ruled by Mars, the planet of aggression, and we also have Saturn going into that sign on the 26th of May. So you were saying, when we were hanging the washing up this morning, because it's a beautiful day here, you were talking about Athena.
Yeah, I thought this really tied in with the polarities and also with Aries season. Athena had a twin brother, Aries, or Eris as some people would pronounce it. And Aries and Athena were prophesied to be, a big deal in the world of the gods. And Zeus was kind of afraid of this, and he swallowed his children so that they wouldn't be born. But Athena is very persistent, and she comes out of his head, and she basically takes over the mantle, really. Zeus says, if anything ever happens to me, Athena is going to be the one to take my place. And one of the reasons for this is, even though Athena and Ares are both gods of war, they represent very different aspects of war. Ares is more to do with the kind of brutality of war. It's to do with the bloodiness of war and the idea of wanting to conquer
and dominate.
Whereas Athena, she will be pushed to war if she needs it, but she would much rather find a resolution. She's often depicted as an owl, as a wise goddess, the goddess of strategy and justice. Those are the things that our Western world was kind of built upon. The idea of, yes, sometimes we have to fight for what's right with force, but that's not the only way to do it.
And you were saying earlier about laws and about a degree of personal responsibility, and that there are consequences for when people don't follow laws and particular principles. And principles seem to be crushed at times recently on the altar of the desire to have power. And that seems to be quite a concerning trend. So one of the things we were thinking with Neptune moving into the sign of Aries, that although Aries is a sign of war, in some ways it could invoke the passion which can come with Neptune in a more spiritual context, but perhaps in a more outspoken way, to push back on the feistier energies that seems to be coming through. And to be honest, we of course have a solar eclipse, the last in the series in the sign of Aries or Libra, but this one's in Aries on the 29th of this month. And that is going to usher in a 6-month period when that desire for some people to dominate is going to be enhanced. But Neptune could levitate that in some ways that we're not necessarily expecting, particularly as it's going to be linking back to Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. So far we've seen with Pluto in its 3 passages through Aquarius, a big conversation and the actuality of AI, robotics, automation. But Pluto is about power, and the sign of Aquarius can be rather detached. So we've had an almost dystopian energy where certain individuals have used power over the masses in a very strident way. What I feel that's going to happen from here on in is, because Aquarius is the sign of the people, we're going to see more collective action pushing back against that individual use of power, which may be more Aries orientated rather than Athena orientated. So in terms of those polarities, I actually feel that we're going to see a rebalancing, but it doesn't mean that the principle of personal responsibility, of making sure that we don't necessarily have a completely dependent mindset, especially towards the state, which has become rooted and isn't a good thing. So if we go back to a little bit of old-fashioned common sense and balance, I feel that that's the epic balance, the epic struggle that is going on at the present time.
I think you've summed that up perfectly, Patrick.
Well, thank you. Well, let's just have a look back at that cardinal quadrant chart for the winter solstice. And I haven't analysed this in detail, quite honestly, but what we did have is Mars at that time in the sign of Leo, where it's very proud and can be very loud, but it was in the 7th house. The 7th house is about relationships, but it's also about open enemies. But Mars is about assertion, and in the 7th house, it's about really stating a boundary in a very stubborn way. But it was directly opposite Pluto when we had the winter solstice on the 21st of December. The other big standout influence is the moon was exactly opposite Saturn in Pisces. So we had the moon in Virgo on that event. So Saturn opposite the moon, as we've had with that lunar eclipse, can create coldness, it can create ruthlessness, and that's something we need to be conscious of. So those energies that have been manifested over the last 3 months have not, in lots of ways, been particularly pleasant for lots of different reasons. So let's have a look next at the event chart for this event, this wonderful event that we're going into. And the big takeout with this vernal equinox is the Sun moving into Aries is very close to the retreating Venus in Aries, which of course is detrimented in Aries. It is in that retrograde, as well as Mercury, but also critically Chiron. So we have to be conscious that Chiron is in a right angle with Mars now back in the sign of Cancer, which it moved back into from the sign of Leo in the retrograde on the 6th of January. Of course, it's going forwards now, but Mars is in a square with Chiron. Chiron in Aries is very much about our identity. We must make sure that we speak up around our emotional security, Mars in Cancer. And also we don't let the passionate language of assertion be used in some ways to make us fearful, which I think has been occurring too. But the other takeout really is the Sun is very, very close to Neptune. So over these next 3 months, even though Venus is in Aries and Neptune is on the anaretic degree in Pisces, this is going to be a cardinal quadrant time, this next 13 weeks, which will have fire, but it will have some water too, because of the elemental mix of Neptune just in Pisces. So we're not necessarily, particularly with those two retrogrades and Chiron being conflicted, going to race forwards in quite the Aries way that we normally would do. So essentially we're being asked to be more dynamic, more self-possessed about our individual needs, but also aware of the need to stay in touch with the concept of compassion and also healing from my perspective. But because of the retrograde to the relator Venus, also money, and Mercury can be commerce as well as communication. Anything we're trying to do now, particularly with Venus and Mercury, set to rewind back into Pisces at the end of March, we're going to see some steps forwards, but we're also going to see 2 steps back in world affairs over the next few weeks. And some of the things that were desired and prophesied are not going to happen, because that more emotional energy is going to start to come back into play in a way that those people who are really up for this more masculine posture don't really want. And it's all about balance, and that's what astrology gives us the opportunity to do every day in our lives, is understand, trying to just keep finding that trim between the different extremes that life and our own inner emotions can create amongst us. Now we are going to look at that Hermetic wheel. So it's a 13-week period. So are there cards that apply to that period?
Yeah, so the Hermetic wheel, I'll pop a little picture on screen so you can get the gist of it here, but every single week has a tarot card attached to it, which is every decan of that particular sign. And then every month has a card attached to it, but we also have every season has usually 2 cards attached to it. So for the spring equinox, we have these 2 cards attached. The first one that appears is the Page of Coins, or the Page of Pentacles. This is a really intriguing card about wealth. It's about possessions, it's about the materialistic world, but the page hasn't quite mastered the coin yet. That would be the king or the queen. The page is still figuring out how to wield their newfound power. So it's quite a young card in some ways. It's quite a young energy, but it has a lot of gumption. So it's a really good card going into this new season of coming up with fresh ideas, which coincides with the second card that rules this season, which is also the Ace of Swords. This is more masculine energy, but it's cool, but it's in a very direct way. So masculine energy in and of itself is obviously not a bad thing. We need masculine energy in life, but it's the kind of masculine energy that is pointed and directed. So the Page of Coins is coming up with these ideas, might not quite know how to implement them, but then the Ace of Swords is saying, no, be direct, be really focused on where you want to go. Perhaps. Be strategic, which goes back to what we were saying about Athena, not just the goddess of war, but of wisdom and strategy. And this is the kind of energy we need to be taking into this. Let's not make any rash decisions. Let's try to be strategic, focused, but still have that compassion. We don't want it to just be a cool energy.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. So now we're going to look at the word for the quarter, because when we started the show, we did it when COVID first started to emerge in think about the January of 2020, and we did it for, I think, 2 years, every single day. So we'd have a word for the day. And eventually it was a lot for us energy-wise to do it. Then we went to weekly, and then because we've moved, that obviously has taken quite a lot out of us in terms of time and getting straight and so forth. But we've also got a new addition to the family. So we've now got a little dog.
So we'll put a picture up for you of her. Her name is
Esme Sydney Elizabeth.
And she is adorable. We adopted her about 8 months ago now. She's a Romanian rescue. She's had a difficult backstory, but she's really starting to come out of her shell now, and we're just so thrilled to have this bit of chaos in our lives that comes through her, but also an incredible amount of love.
Yeah, she's absolutely brilliant. So we're going to pick a word now out of the cookie jar. This is completely random. Elisa was writing some new words in.
So I will give it a good shake and I will let you pick.
Okay,
Patrick.
thank you. Let's see what we get then. So it's completely off the cuff. Right, so the word that's come out is integrity. What's your take on integrity?
I feel we need a lot more of it in the world at the moment, if I could be so blunt. Integrity often goes hand in hand with truth and justice for me when I think of that word, because integrity means that we're being true to who we are. We're walking the talk. We're not just making outlandish statements about who we are or what we want to be. We're being very truthful and honest about where we're at right now. On a micro level in our own individual lives, I think it also means, not promising more than we can deliver. At the end of it all, that's going to just put pressure on us to try and be someone that we can't be right now. It's just about asking us to be honest about where we are right now and letting other people meet us on our journey where we are right now. That's what comes up for me.
Yeah, because one of the things that I think has been going on in a less positive way with Neptune in Pisces is we're in a post-truth age. So repetitively we have people making claims that just are clearly factually wrong. And when you're brought up in a Christian environment, as we both were when we were younger, it was really drilled into us the importance of truthfulness, to the point that you could get very guilty about things, which obviously wasn't a positive thing. Very Catholic, of course. But I have a friend, Jill, who I've known since I was 5. We actually went to Catholic school all those years ago, and we still speak now, spoken today. And she says there's a power when people say something that's truthful. There's a power to that really shines through. Now, by saying about the Christian ideology, I'm not in any way excluding any other faith. What I feel that did for me is it helps me. My mum always used to say honesty is the best policy. It kind of keeps you right. But what we've got, particularly in the political world, but also in the, if you like, in the micro-blogging sphere or social media sphere, there's a lot of claims are made, but those claims are based on emotional responses rather than facts. And in a way, I feel democracy is eating itself alive. But this just feeds into the hands for those countries who don't allow people to have free speech. We're so lucky to have that wonderful ability to express ourselves, but I feel we have to use it with care. So with freedom does come responsibility. So I think if all of us can just be conscious of what we say and try to only say things that are really honest. Sometimes we might not, because we want to save someone's feelings, but I'm talking in a more strategic sense, in the leadership that's going on in the world. Truth is actually really important. And maybe Neptune moving into Aries, as it does at the end of the month, will bring that passion combined with that spiritual message very much like Athena.
And do you know what's really interesting? As you were talking, I was just thinking of another story from ancient Greece that involves Athena and Poseidon, which really is also known as Neptune. And they were both fighting over the land of Athens. You know, they both wanted to be the sort of, what we would say, patron saint of Athens. And Poseidon had promised to give the land water so it would always be, you know, nourished. And the people thought, yeah, this is great. And they were ultimately, you know, to begin with, on Poseidon's side, but they realized that the water was salty. The water wasn't drinkable. It wasn't something, you know, he'd over-promised what he could deliver. Athena, on the other hand, promised olive trees to feed people and keep them nourished, and she delivered exactly what she said she would. Ultimately, the people chose Athena to be the patron saint of their land, and that's how we get Athens. So it just shows that through strategy, truth and integrity, we can still win. It might take a bit longer, but it is the right way to do it. There are fundamental right and wrong things in life.
That's absolutely amazing. I love Elisa's knowledge of mythology. It's absolutely brilliant. And it does bring, you know, there are contexts there. Like with Neptune, we have seen the poisoning of our seas, our lakes, our rivers, through things like microplastics and particles. But also, of course, we've seen a lot of effluent being pumped into rivers, and because a lot of water companies in the UK at least are privately owned or owned by bondholders, the main motive is profit, not the preservation of natural life, and making sure that the fish and the creatures that live in rivers are going to flourish. So we're seeing a big pushback against that now as well. So again, Neptune moving into the fiery Aries can bring more passion to try to protect some of the things that went wrong with the passage of Neptune through Pisces, even though it rules that sign.
There's hope.
Let's hope there is hope. We really do need hope. So the other thing we've done is that we started a membership on Patrick Arundell Astrology on YouTube, and we would be really grateful for your support. There are 2 tiers, and the lower tier is...
It's $2.99 a month.
Just under $3.
$3 a month, and the middle tier is, I think, $7 a month. For both, you will get your own individual badge, and you get priority in terms of your comments being answered. We are looking to add more tiers and more features, so if there's anything in particular that you want, then your feedback is really great for us, because then we can deliver to you what you would like. So
one of the things we really pride ourselves on is interacting with as many comments as we can, which obviously does take time and does take effort, and we would be very grateful if you would investigate, check out the membership options, and support us and the channel to continue to thrive. We're just a tiny bit short of 130,000 subscribers. We do get a little bit hit in some ways, because our channel has done weekly and monthly horoscope videos from the off, and some of those have been shorter. YouTube has built up an algorithm view of what we offer. So when we do something different, so for example, we're just about to launch an Aries season video, it doesn't get shared to as many people as some newer players coming in with much fewer views and subs as us. And so your support and interaction, whether it's a like, a comment, sharing it with someone, becoming a subscriber, becoming a member, is so crucial to try to push back a little bit against that unfortunate algorithm issue, because we are thinking about starting a new channel which would be called Patrick Arundell Plus, which would be based on videos that were evergreen, so videos that are not based on set periods but have longevity, and that's something we're still considering. But any support you can give us, we'd be grateful for.
And talking about new beginnings, we have launched our new website. It's still a work in progress, it's not quite there yet, but I am proud of what we've achieved, and I really would love it if you came along, had a look through the website and just enjoyed some of the articles on there, you know, your daily written, monthly written, weekly written horoscopes.
You can also sign up for your free daily written horoscope, but a new feature we have is your free daily moon horoscope based on your time, date and place. So that's a personal horoscope product, but based on your moon, and you get your prediction or your forecast sent through each day for both the moon and the daily horoscope, and totally free. So please check out www.patrickarundell.com. And if you would like to have a one-to-one with me, I am a consultant astrologer. Please check out my testimonials below. And also, if you'd like to check out my new astrology video service, where you don't speak to me directly, but I provide your forecast or your overview based on a video format, and it's proving really popular. Or you can take advantage of our long-standing written reports offer if you order your life roadmap report, which is the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to us, but it helps us to understand the patterns that are played out in our lives so far. It gives us searing insights on how to guide our energies future forwards, but in the special offer of 30% off, you also get your 12 months transit report too. Please see the link below for all of those features that we've just shared with you.
And I can attest that it is a really good, a great thing to have. I got one for my birthday, and I printed it off, and it's something I refer back to. So it is well worth a look at.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been brilliant to be back with Elisa. I'm so lucky to have this incredible person in my life, and now we have Esme too. We share the pictures. We were going to have her in here live, but there was an old saying on Blue Peter, something about animals and children. I don't know. Blue Peter.
Don't work with them.
Don't work with them live. Or just another thing. Esme has brought out my inner Johnny Morris, and Elisa said,
"Who's Johnny Morris?"
So Johnny Morris was a Bristol zookeeper in the west of England who became quite a legendary TV star when I was very young, and he basically used to talk to every different animal but answer for them as well. He was absolutely brilliant. So having Esme means that when we go for walks we have lots of different conversations with lots of different dogs. And
Sweetest thing.
And I tell people that it's brought out my inner Johnny Morris. So anyone around my age knows.
Yeah, and now if you're not, you now know.
So we'll share a picture of Johnny Morris too. So thank you so much for joining us. All the best for this next 3 months of this spring equinox, a time when we can embrace and enjoy the power of Aries energy, which is about initiation, passion, dynamism. But we do need to stay in touch with our feelings. We need to stay in touch with being caring and thoughtful and keeping that sense of integrity where we can. So
from the 18, it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from her.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.